接下来有请工业4.0专家、技术分析师伍尔里希·森德勒先生来发表人工智能驱动的工业互联网的主题报告。伍尔里希先生呢，他撰写了超过15本的书籍，其中有一本书籍啊，特别得到了业内的一个重视，大家都觉得写得非常的好，叫《工业4.0：第4次工业革命》。那么我们下面有请辛德勒先生来做主题报告。Thank you.
你们好。Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be again in Shenyang and to talk to you about the industrial internet driven by artificial intelligence. You were hearing about it in the past presentations, and I'm delighted to tell you something more. Where to go? When I was in Dongguan at the wonderful ceramics group company, they showed me this vase, this clay vase with the Chinese characters on it, which looked like written or made by the soft pencil, but it's not the way. It's the way that some specialists are cutting those characters in the raw clay. And one of the specialists at this company was asking me, well, Mr. Sandler, you're so good in Germany with Industry 4.0, so maybe you have a machine that we can do this automatically? And I said, no. We had a discussion of about 2 hours after my presentation in this company, and we were talking about what is the real thing that has to be done in China. It's necessary to digitalize the processes of your companies, of your processes, bring it to the digital, do the digital transformation for your processes, and that's work for the next decade, where you have to digitalize your own processes. And that's not something that we can do with our machine and our technology. But this together will work. So what am I going to talk about today? First, the industrial internet is the next wave of digital business, which is going on for many years now. The artificial intelligence and machine learning are making the difference to what we had before. And there are some new platforms and ecosystems that are necessary to know and necessary to use in the right way. Industrial internet, the next wave of digital business. If you look at the digital transformation of the past decades, you see 5 decades and about 3 great leaps. The first was starting in the 70s with using the computer for almost every task. First in the companies, first in the industry, in the economy, but then everywhere. At home, everyone is using the computer today. The second leap started 2007 with the first smartphone of Apple, the iPhone, and it enabled us to connect everybody with everybody all over the world at any time. That was the great leap, and it's now self-understanding for us. It looks normal. But what happens now is the Internet of Things, and that's even more, because now everything can be connected to everything and everyone all over the world at any time. This makes a big difference because it's not only the people being connected, the 7.4 billion people that we have today, but billions and trillions of things every hair on your head maybe having its own internet address, maybe sending data or accepting data from somewhere. Let me give you a small look into the history of industrialization of the past 250 years. It first started in the second half of the 18th century with the first industrial revolution, steam engine, you know all of that. And this and the second one with the assembly line and automobile and telephone, electricity, that was almost going the same way in the Western world, in Europe and the United States. It started in Great Britain, then France, Germany, United States, and almost parallel. It was developed all over the world. But then there was a big difference. And in 1970, when the computer came up, the industry world split in two directions. In the one direction, in Germany and Europe, also in Japan, we were using the computer in the first row to optimize production, for automation, for the programmable logic controller, and for mechatronic products and robotics. Afterwards, we are saying this was the third industrial revolution. At that time, nobody was talking about it, and we will see in the United States it was different. They did not concentrate on the industry anymore. They concentrated on the IT revolution itself. They were focusing on the computer, it was IBM, then the software, that was Microsoft, then the internet, Facebook, Amazon, and then data, Google, Amazon Web Services, what we have today, cloud services. And that led to a different positioning of maybe one of the leaders in hardware is now Germany, one of the leaders in software is the United States. And if you look at where we are today, the Industrial Internet Consortium, it came 3 years after we started with Industry 4.0 in 2012. Only 7 years ago, but a lot happened since then. And by the way, the United States are talking about the third industrial revolution today because they didn't take the third step that we did. But if you look at what's happening now, the Internet of Things and Services, you see that it needs to be combined again. So if you want to have everything connected and being the base of services, of new kind of services like you heard in the past presentation, you need to combine these things connected with the software and the internet. And so when you look at the past 30 years, China was coming up as extended workbench for the Western industries. That was the beginning. But if you look at China today, it's a big competitor in both sectors, in hardware and software for the Western world, and for good reasons. Because you had something like relationalism in your science 2,500 years ago, when we started with analytics. This analytics science in Western world was good enough to make the first industrial revolution. What happens now, the fourth industrial revolution and the digitalization of the whole world, that needs the thinking that is in your blood. In Germany, I have problems to talk to the engineers in the industry that they need to think in systems, that they need systems engineering instead of doing one thing after another. In China, I always have the feeling that's normal. You are thinking in systems of systems anyway. The Internet of Things is making a big difference to what we had until now in the digital business, because that was only consumer goods, it was the smartphones, it was connecting people to each other. But the next step will be driven by the industry, and that makes a difference. The smart factory, smart engineering was only the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution, and this picture shows you a true copy of a Siemens factory in Germany, which was built in Chengdu in 2013. Where we are today, the digital twin and the lifecycle data management are the foundation of Internet of Things. What we can do today, like you see in this picture, use this digital twin of a robot that's handling a PLC and putting it in some device to program the real twin. This same robot was doing his work like it was programmed with a digital twin. And the foundation of it is a data consistency all over the product life cycle, which changes everything that we knew before. The industry was knowing a value chain that started with the idea and ended with the sales of a product. So somebody was owning the product. But now, this might be the beginning of the value chain, because when the product is connected to the world and to the Internet, it may be the base of services, of new kinds of services, which may be much more worth in the future than the product sales was in the past. And artificial intelligence and machine learning, we were hearing about it today, are making a difference. Why is that? If you look at artificial intelligence, the history, the past century, it started in 1956 in Dartmouth in the USA, where the name was the first time written. Since then, we had decades of trials and errors and much frustration because it didn't work. It worked, but it was not economically working. It was not possible to make money with it. It was not possible to solve the problems that we had. You could do expert systems, but they were much too cost-intensive, they were slow, they were not delivering what we needed. But now we have those artificial neural networks. Since 1997, Schmidhuber in Switzerland was inventing it. And a couple of years later, beginning of this decade, Google and other rich companies invested billions to have thousands of CPUs, of graphical CPUs, parallel working on the same job, and using this artificial intelligence in the cloud, and using massive amount of data that is available now, and using the new technology of big data analytics to analyze this data. And now we can use it for machine learning, which is nothing else than artificial neural networks that are trained with big data. We can use it for machine learning of machines, of products, of robots, of everything. But when I talked to the leader of the research at ABB in Switzerland, he was telling me, you know, mainstream AI, like we know it today from the consumer goods, from the smartphone vendors, that's not made for the industry. It was made for the consumers. And it's good enough for predictive maintenance and comparable services. But it's not good enough for physical process control and corresponding data and anomalies to analyze that. And therefore, he told me, you know, this is only the beginning of artificial intelligence used for industry. These are only the first services that we can deliver today. But what we want to do is to understand why the data that we collected led to these actions. And this is almost not possible with the AI that we have today. And what we really want to have is that the machine, after learning from their past data, is able to give us solutions automatically. And we are far, far away from this situation. Industrial AI will be something that the industry has to develop. It will not come from consumer goods. It will not come from the same providers that we have today. And therefore, autonomous cars, autonomous factories, that's a long way to go. Platforms and ecosystems are the new kind of marketplace that we have today. There's a rise of industry platforms that are already hundreds today, from ABB Ability, Bosch IoT, Adamos, Haier, Homag, Huawei, Siemens MindSphere, many, many others. Though everybody's saying there might be only 5 or 6 left after a couple of years. But today, these are there. And they bring a different kind of apps than we know from the App Store, from Apple and others. They make also the industry customers to users. It's more important to use a function of a machine and of a production plant than to own it in the future. And there are also new ecosystems. Like with every new technology, it's a big question, do I buy it or do I build it myself? And it's important because it's a big effort, and so it's a big cost for data acquisition to train those artificial intelligence algorithms. And it's also a big effort to train those algorithms, and they're only worth, they have only their value after training. The algorithms themselves, they can be used for anything. And therefore, there are many partners that you have to have in your mind when you start using AI for industry processes, from infrastructure, microservices, app platforms, IT vendors, app providers, system integrators, and consultants, because you don't have the people in your company today. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is we are always hearing about the cloud, and AI is something in the cloud. That's true. The cloud is secure today. It's fast, it's flexible, it's scalable compared to nothing else. But not everything has to go into the cloud because it's not possible. That's first. Also, the cloud is not a real cloud. It's only server farms of huge, they are big, but they're not big enough for all the data we can collect now. And more edge artificial intelligence is coming up, and also the presentation before mine was talking about that. But there's something more coming up. If you really want to have AI used for industrial processes to control a machine, that has to react in a friction of a millisecond, then you need the AI on a chip. And this is some new area of competition for chip builders. And the chief of Huawei a couple of weeks ago said, well, the differences between the United States and China today in terms of chip building, they are different than what will be in the future. And Huawei is concentrating on chips for the industry, which will be needed. And one last slide to let you know there are still this book that was making me a little bit known in China from 2015. I think it's still available. And the second one came out last year. It's from China CITIC Press. It's including a big chapter about Made in China 2025 from Tian Shubin and Pan Zhe from Xinhua Net. Thank you very much.